Hello everybody, this is Kiana Mayfield from LibraLunaCenter.com and welcome to your weekly forecast for the week of May 15th through the 21st of 2017. Now, I'm a little late with this video. It is Tuesday today when I'm recording this, but there's not much going on this week until the weekend, right? So, in the beginning of the week, Monday, we had the moon in Capricorn. And Capricorn was exactly conjuncting Pluto. So as we had the full moon in Scorpio last month, bringing up all of our shadows and all of our psychological habits, our sabotaging ideologies, right? The parts of ourselves that keep us in the dark, right? It all came up to the surface during the full moon. And while the moon was exactly conjuncting Pluto, Scorpio's ruling planet, on Monday, as Mercury was on the very last degree of Aries, 29 degrees, trying to figure out the answer, right? Its ruling planet, Mars in Gemini, trying to figure out the answer, looking in multiple directions, right? Stimulating our nervous system, you know. There was almost a sense of fatality on Monday, right? I actually woke up with a nightmare on Monday. You know, I was anxious throughout the entire day and I couldn't really pinpoint what it was, but Pluto was bringing up all of the parts of ourselves that we have suppressed, all of the parts of ourselves that it was the last encounter with the shadow, right? It was asking us, what are we going to choose now, right? How are we going to react to what comes up, to what challenges us, right? When the shadow comes up to the surface, how are you going to react to it now that you are this new person, now that you are refining your emotional center, right? As you've evolved, how will your actions from here on out evolve as well? How will you encounter your shadow side from now on? It was the massive intensity to get to the bottom of your own psyche, right? To get to the bottom of your center of power, right? What do you control and what do you not control? And making the distinction between those two and releasing your need to control the uncontrollable, right? And so, today, Tuesday through Wednesday, Mercury has moved into Taurus. So, the stimulation was heavy on Monday, right? We felt like we needed to make a decision right away. But there's still more information to gather until Venus and Mercury comes out of shadow, right? Directly at the end of this week. And Mercury in Taurus is allowing us to take a step back, right? It's allowing us to slow down a little bit and kind of reflect and take a look at the practical aspects of everything going on in our lives, right? We feel like we need to make this huge, major decision and kind of just leap into it, right? But Mercury in Taurus is about being practical. It's about looking at everything, looking at what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and perceiving with your senses, your physical senses, right? Instead of the impulses and the imagination of Aries acting on impulse, acting on pure fire and initiative and willpower, right? Taurus slows that down. Taurus controls it, tempers it, it makes it sustainable, right? And we have the moon in Aquarius, right? Making a grand air trine in the sky through Tuesday and Wednesday. So it's a pretty chill week overall until we get to the end of the week when things will be coming out again, right? Starting back up. We have a bit of a slowdown period to process everything that's going on. And the moon in Aquarius is all about looking at where we want to revolutionize our lives, right? Looking at what we want to connect with, what stimulates us, what is going to, as Aquarius's ruling planets Saturn and Uranus start to communicate with each other in a trine, right? That's a big aspect. It's a very creative aspect. It is allowing you to completely transform your reality, right? In a creative way, in a harmonious way, without completely destabilizing everything. But also making a change massive enough that aligns with this new identity you've created, that aligns with your soul essence, right? And that aligns with the bigger story of your life, because the journey you want to take, as both of these planets are also in trine to the North Node in Leo, asking us to commit to what we feel we desire to create in our hearts, right? What we desire to experience, what brings us true joy and authenticity. And the moon in Aquarius is looking at our current environments, right? Who we are connected to right now, and if they're aligning with the vision of what we want to create. And this is all about taking things slow. As Mercury's in Taurus, it's about what's valuable, what is worth it, what is simple, right? Taurus is about, as the sun is in Taurus as well, it's about getting back to the basics, right? It's about overlooking the complexity of what we feel like our life is consisting of right now. We feel like the choice is complicated. We feel like we feel there's more to it than there actually is. And Taurus is about what has the life potential to grow into the garden of your dreams. What do you want to build in your life, right? And this will be a big thing that will come into greater and greater question as we move through Thursday through Friday, right? From the 18th to the 19th. First off, on the 19th, we have Venus finally coming out of shadow, right? And as it comes out of shadow, 13 degrees, it will be directly opposing Jupiter retrograde. And as this happens, the sun will be at 28 degrees Taurus, directly in square to the north node and the south node, 28 degrees, right? And as this happens, the moon will be in Aquarius, 28 degrees directly on the south node, forming a T-square, right? And as this happens, Chiron will be exactly 28 degrees Pisces, sextiling over to the sun in Taurus, and quincunxing over to the north node in Leo. And Saturn, this will build up over the week. That's why I talked about it earlier. But Saturn will be making an exact trine to Uranus as this happens. And the moon is in Aquarius, right? Forming a grand fire trine or kite in the sky with the north node at the apex. So this is things finally popping off, right? Things finally coming to their culmination. Things finally making sense, right? It's like the fog is lifted. Venus has been retrograde since March 4th. And as we had the new moon in Aries at the beginning of this spring equinox cycle, right? At the beginning of the astrological new year, this new moon in Aries was conjuncting Venus retrograde, right? And so 2 months ago, we moved into this new story, right? Or we felt like it was a new story. Things came back, right? Things from the past came back to be dealt with to help you redefine yourself, to help you look at the greater aspect of what you want to create in your life. Look at the greater aspect of what you want to create in your relationships, in your financial situation, right? What you truly value, who you truly are, your self-worth. And this has been an aspect we've been almost obsessed with for 2 months, right? This has been something we have been diving into relentlessly. Questions coming back around over and over again, like, what will the decision be? Where is this journey taking us? Where do we truly want to go? And with Venus now coming out of shadow, it is finally the leap forward, right? The fog is lifted. The emotional nature is clear. It's opposing Jupiter. And oppositions bring complete awareness. It brings awareness of the other from yourself, whereas conjunctions are completely subjective, are completely internal, right? They are seeing yourself through the other, versus opposition. The opposition is seeing the other apart from yourself, right? It is looking at things objectively, looking at things completely clearly, right? And with Jupiter retrograde opposing Venus in Aries, this is about relationship patterns, relationship cycles that date back years, right? Years of our lives, of how we operate within relationships, how we operate within our careers, within our work environments, within how we create anything in our lives, right? We have had a certain pattern that has been playing out over and over and over again throughout everything that we create, whether that's a project, whether that's a career, whether that's a relationship, right? There has been something there that has been similar to everything we've created in the past, right? And so how do you break that pattern? How do you break the karma? How do you transcend your habitual tendencies? And we are learning how to do that as Venus opposes Jupiter and the Sun in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, right? Looking at our self-worth, who we are now, who we've created ourselves to be through this Venus retrograde period, right? And what we want to align with. What is our heart pulling us towards? Taurus is about getting down to the basics, right? It's not some convoluted, overly formulaic agenda, right? You want it to be simple. You want it to be concrete. You want it to be solid. And what's solid is your heart, right? What brings you joy? What lights you up? What inspires you? What calls to you naturally, right? It's not any more complicated than that. But we make it complicated with the South Node in Aquarius, right? There are two ways that the shadow can play out in Aquarius. One way it can play out is through the need for validation, the need for approval, the need to go with what the community says, right? Go with the collective voice, just blend in with the crowd. It doesn't matter who you connect with as long as you're connecting, right? That's a shadow side of Aquarius. It needs to blend in because it is so different, utterly, right? That the only way it can survive is through blending in with the crowd. The other aspect of the shadow with the South Node in Aquarius is the need to rebel, right? The need to completely disregard the feelings of other people, the feelings of how your actions will affect everyone else, right? It's destruction. It is kicking everything to the curb and just doing what you want to do, regardless of anything, anybody, anyone, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a lot more simple than that as well. It's a lot more simple than just rebelling, because there is such a thing as being a rebel without a cause, right? You're starting up chaos just to start chaos, not to actually change anything, right? And the North Node, as it's making a square, the nodal axis making a square to the Sun in Taurus, this is about making decisions that make sense. This is making decisions that align with your heart. This is about keeping your own integrity, right? When you say one thing and you do another, that is not keeping integrity. That is not in alignment with, that is not the alignment between your head and your heart, right? It's not just about understanding something intellectually and orienting your body in a completely other direction, right? It is about complete alignment between the mind, body, and soul. That is integrity. And that derives from the center of your heart. That derives from this I'm getting like a diamond. You know how we all have something within us. Some people, to some people, it comes across differently. It could be a lotus flower, it can be a diamond, it can be anything, right? But it is at the core of our chests. It is at the core of our heart centers. And its purpose is to unfold throughout our lives, right? The diamond must reflect the light, right? And become iridescent and shine in multiple different directions. The lotus flower must bloom, right? And this is about the decision, especially as the sun is in Taurus, emphasizing this need for simplicity, this need for concreteness, this need to allow the flower inside of our hearts to bloom without making it complicated, right? When you're looking at something in your life, the question, especially as everything, all of the personal planets, right, are in personal signs, right? This is about us. This is about our own happiness. This is about our own fulfillment. It is not about everyone else and everything else. And the community. It's about, you can't satisfy anything or anyone else without satisfying yourself first, without making yourself happy, right? And this is all about the decision to choose happiness over complexity, right? And the question that you want to ask for anything in your life is not, am I in love with my life? That derives from the greater question, right? And the greater question is, do I love who I am when I am in this situation? When I am going along this life path? When I am with this person? When I am in this career? When I am doing this work? When I am taking this journey, right? Do I love who I am? Not do I love this per se, but do I love who I am when I am with this ... right? Because it's all about, the right decision is not based on external circumstances. The right decision aligns with how you feel. And this is the chance to completely heal and clear our relationship patterns, to come to mature understanding from the lessons we've learned these past few months, right? What has it taught us? What has it told us about ourselves, right? Who are we now? And where do we want to go now? Why did this need to happen in this way? We're coming to that emotional understanding now. We are bringing peace into the equation, right? We understand why things happened the way they happened, why they needed to happen in this way in order to get us to this place within ourselves. We are coming to this emotional understanding, this emotional sense of maturity. And everything from here on out will be different because we've come to this emotional understanding within ourselves, right? And what we thought what we thought we were getting into, particularly during the new moon in Aries, right? Conjuncting Venus retrograde. What we thought it was a new story, but we were actually going backwards, right? And now it is the opportunity, as Venus comes out of shadow, to move forwards at long last, because we have cleared our relationship patterns. We understand why things needed to be in a certain way that they were. And we are choosing the high road for ourselves, and the high road for ourselves is choosing the road of love, right? It is choosing the simple road. It is choosing the sustainable road. It is choosing the unfoldment of our heart, right? And from Saturday through Sunday, the weekend, from the 20th through the 21st, we have Mercury the next day coming out of shadow in Taurus. And as that happens, the sun will be moving into Gemini, the ruler of Mercury, right? So this is coming to some final awareness, some final conclusion, some final decision that we feel we need to make, right? It is whatever we've been obsessing over, right? As the sun was in a fixed sign in Taurus, getting to the bare bottom of our value and what we want to create and what we want to build, right? As the sun moves into Gemini, it is the expansion of focus, right? So no longer are we so intently focused on one single aspect of our lives. Suddenly the world opens up again, right? Our minds are clear. After we understand something emotionally through Venus coming out of shadow, we understand it intellectually, right? And it is not completely out of the Venus story, because Mercury is in Taurus, which is Venus ruled, right? So it's all pointing back to Venus. It's all pointing back to Venus, and it's pointing to what brings us value and happiness in our lives, and simplicity versus complexity, and how are we going to take the practical steps, right? What is the next step? The practical details versus the inspiration. It is knowing what you need to do and aligning your reality to align with your understanding, right? Talking and understanding is no longer enough, right? We must leap into it. We must take the action necessary in order to align with what it is that we want, now that our minds and our emotions are clear. This is the next step. And it's not just about one area in your life. It's not just about one relationship. It's not just about one project. It is opening it up to see every single area of your life, and how this new value, this new sense of self-worth, this new identity aligns with every single area of your life, right? You want to explore. You want to become like a child, right? You want to play around. You want to stimulate your mind, right? You want to align with a new environment. It is about opening up. It's about stepping away with what has been your obsession for so long, obsessing over the details, obsessing over your emotions, obsessing over what you want, right? Your desires, your question, it's the constant questioning, the back and forth, right? And Gemini is kind of, it still asks questions, and it's still getting to the, it's finding out the truth of things, but the perspective is different. It's looking at the whole picture, right? It's playing with everything versus obsessing over it. And this is the new journey you want to take in your life. And from Friday through the weekend, the moon will be in Pisces, stimulating our imagination, stimulating the spiritual calling that we're being pulled to explore, right? To go down towards. What is calling to you on a spiritual level to explore? What is calling you on a spiritual level to step out of your comfort zone, right? To change your environment in some way. And this will be something that comes into greater and greater and greater intensity, build up, as Venus, coming off of the opposition to Jupiter, which is already a huge aspect, right? Because Jupiter is the biggest planet, right? It is expanding our understanding within our relationships and within what we're creating, but especially relationships, because it is in Libra, the ruler of Venus, opposing Venus in Aries, the self versus the other, right? And to look at things objectively and our patterns within the relationships that we've built, and how we can transcend those patterns, and where our best prospects of transcending those patterns are, right? How are we going to do it? And it's about playing with every single choice, right? And Venus will be, next week, Venus will be getting ready to square Pluto, exactly as there is a new moon in Gemini happening. And the Mars will be getting ready to oppose Saturn as well as this happens. And this is like the make or break, right? This is the all or nothing. This is whatever you've been on the fence about, you either gonna jump or not, right? You either gonna make the leap or not, or go down a completely new path, right? We cannot have half-hearted efforts anymore, because what's half-hearted is not your heart, right? It's more simple than that. Whatever you're doing half-heartedly, whatever you're doing with half your energy, you're when you're saying, okay, I'm kind of in this world and I'm kind of in this world, so which world do I choose? The world that speaks to your heart, the world that speaks to your soul, is the world that you choose, right? It's not about what anybody else thinks. It's not about rebelling and revolting against everything and everyone, right? It's simple. What makes you feel like a child? What makes you feel like you are in love with your life and who you are, right? Which world provides that feeling for you? Which world makes you feel like anything in your life is possible? Makes you feel free, It's pretty simple, but we make it complicated through our intellectualizing, through our through our rationalization, right? We rationalize staying in suffering. We do it all the time, right? We rationalize staying in the dark. We find a way for it to make sense for us to experience this, to continue experiencing this, right? It's like saying, I must stay in suffering because if I do this, then I'll get to this, and then I'll have this, right? Then I'll be able to do this. Then I'll be really able to do what I really want to do, right? You're constantly going down a path in order to get to this path, right? You say, I need to experience this before I can experience this, because that's the only way I'm going to be ready to experience this, right? And that, whatever you feel like is on the other side, that is your heart, right? That is the simplicity, that is the quintessence of what it is you actually want to create. It's not all the other stuff that you feel like you must do before you come to this conclusion. It's not, you're rationalizing. It is not the complexity. It is not rocket science, Aquarius makes things rocket science. And many people throughout this week, as the moon is in Aquarius, will start, no. We'll start, freaking out, coming out of left field with things, while the moon's in Aquarius on the south node, especially, anything can happen. Because Aquarius is a very high vibrational sign, right? It is, it can easily be misused because it is so different, right? Because it yearns to return to something which it doesn't have a name for, right? And so it uses its imagination. It uses all of its intuitive faculties to imagine the possibilities, the revolutionary, visionary world that it could enter, right? And so it does crazy, erratic, spasmodic things in order to feel different, right? But it's not just about feeling different that makes Aquarius what it is, right? It is about the integration between the soul and the mind, right? Between the spirit and the matter, between art and science, between the ego and the collective consciousness. And that's not an easy thing to just merge together, right? Because as we are in the age of Pisces, we've discovered polarity. We've discovered, it's constantly been like, oh, I am the evil one and I need to find the savior. It's about, it's always been about light and dark. It's always been about the battle of the sexes. It's always been about the battle between the ego and the soul, between God and humanity, right? The age of Pisces has been about this illusion that we are separate from all that is. That matter is completely distinct from spirit, from energy, right? When matter is energy, moving at a different frequency, right? That's all it really is. It's not separate from it. And the age of Aquarius is recognizing that everything is connected in that way. It is about the integration of matter and the soul. And individuals and high Aquarian energy, when it is misused in this way, it can create complete destruction, right? It can become the mad scientist with this crazy erratic plan for world domination. But the North Node is calling us to make it more simple than that, right? The North Node in Leo. It's not about proving yourself to anything, anybody, anyone, any community, any voice of reason, right? It is about the heart. And it's not any more complicated than that. And that will be revealed more and more about what your heart is truly speaking to you and what your heart truly wants to manifest in this life, right? Where you are being called to. And to dive into the journey. So thank you for watching. And I will see you next week as Venus gets ready to square Pluto, Mars opposes Saturn, and we have a new moon in Gemini, which is very exciting, and it's the complete entrance into the new world. Right? It is the birth of the baby that was planted in Taurus. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.